Hi everyone. I was watching Baron Coleman. Well, first I saw Don Lemon with this guy. Let me share first. Uh, this guy, Michael Popok, Popok, Popok. I have no idea how that's pronounced. Um, so I'll just say Michael. But anyway, they're going on about Don Lemon's
See of the grand jury.
uh, freedom of speech case. I'm not familiar with exactly the details of that case, but it's just that the bantering of these two about freedom of speech and the courts and problems with the DOJ. I'm like, well, welcome to the club. Y'all are finally starting to see that maybe we have a problem someplace. I mean, I've been working on court reform for 20 years, and there have been people who are much longer who have now passed away. Connie Valentine, she was California. She was one of the first, she started the Protected Mothers Association, and one of those, once again, infighting, egos, power plays, and why. I mean, does it absolve the responsibility of the journalist for not exposing the issues that we've been bringing to them for 20, 30, 40 years? But the activists and the victims won't work together. The experts all have their political agendas. The supposed women's rights, domestic violence, human rights, civil rights, all of those are just party politicking industries. You can see right away, for example, RFK Human Rights, which was started by Ethel Kennedy 6 months after her husband was killed in order to bankroll her party hardy lifestyle. As Bobby Kennedy said about his mother, she saw the world as friend versus foe, and the treatment of her staff and children was at odds with her human rights um, banter. And Carrie is no different. This is Ethel Kennedy's daughter, Bobby Kennedy's sister, Caroline, all of the Kennedy women. My Lord, I started coverage of the Charlie Kirk assassination and examination of the podcasters because, well, first, Matt Dowd was fired. I recently sent an email to, well, not an email, X, a DM, I guess they call him, to him. Of course, he's going to ignore me. Now, he has been, they're partners. They've been together for a long time, with Maria Shriver, who is Arnold Schwarzenegger's ex-wife. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right after that, he was on a panel discussion, and he said, well, you know what the real problem is that the press, it's radicalizing everybody. And I agree. That they haven't been producing news. I've been after them for 20 years, so I know that they're full of shit. And I've been exposing the extent that they're full of shit. And now finally, everybody's waking up. I mean, you have, let's see, in terms of freedom of speech, and these are just some examples. This is not an exhaustive list by any means. Sorry. But the first person I saw, the journalist that I saw that was ousted under, freedom of speech issues was Juan Williams from NPR. You have Megyn Kelly, who was it was some blackface. I think what it was she dressed up as like Diana Ross, um, in some costume. So of course, I mean, what you gonna do? A white Diana Ross? I mean, the oh God, what is that? This is one of my favorite movies. Oh, what is this? Chicks of is this? Oh, what is that? Chicks of North of Southampton, was that? It was these guys, these two black guys who are detectives, and they have to dress up. No, it's not that. And they have to, dress up and pretend to be these like two socialites, these prima donnas, these blonde prima donnas. I mean, they obviously, I forget what it's called. Obviously, um, you have to have a little imagination to see that these are, that people would believe that this is really these girls. But the movie is really funny because it just mocks the whole, Martha's Vineyard jet setting crowd and those stupid prima donna women like Erica Kirk. Sorry, Erica Kirk is the typical, um, all of the women around Trump. And I mean, it is so funny. It really is really funny. Um, but they're two black dudes dressed up as white, stupid blonde bimbos. I mean, is that racist? I lost out in a competition. It was a Halloween competition, Succotash restaurant in Washington, if anybody's been here. Uh, it's downtown. Tourists do know it. But anyway, it was Halloween, and they said, okay, we're going to have a, costume competition. So I dressed up as John Dickinson and the Founding Fathers. And this black woman, she dressed up as Marilyn Monroe. Do I have grounds to say that's racist? I want her fired. I mean, really. Oh, but see, I forgot. If you're a little person, if you're not a celebrity, you don't, freedom of speech doesn't apply to you. It only applies to podcasters, journalists, um, celebrities, actors, things like that. But the little people, they don't have right to freedom of speech. I mean, I've been fired, I don't know how many times, at least a dozen. Well, the IMF Family Association, that's not really freedom of speech issues, but because this gets into, each time I keep on telling everybody, I am trying to clean up the courts. I am working on, anti-corruption work. And if you shut me up, if this is in reprisal for what, my activism work, for example, when some woman, the manager, she says she has American Indian heritage, and I ask her what tribe, they fire me because they say I'm being racist. I have no recourse under the law. or I'm supporting Bobby Kennedy's campaign and they fire me because of that. I mean, even Morgan and Morgan, who used to be that was partner of Bobby Kennedy, wouldn't defend me. I mean, I really, whatever, with these celebrity podcasters, I mean, they're like thumbing their noses up at me um, because I don't have lots of subscribers, I don't have lots of likes and views, and so I'm not important. I mean, hell, the Foxcroft girls are playing that game with me, and I keep on telling all those robber baron heiresses, y'all are crap shooting your family fortunes and your trust funds because we're over at the International Criminal Courts under crimes against humanity. Because they can be over 15 years to find a lawyer who would submit. And we've gone through lawyer after lawyer after lawyer. Amongst them, one is Amal Clooney. Now, her barrister firm in London is where Keir Starmer used to work. And they also, I still have a lot of different questions, and until the legal community and the politicians are willing to negotiate and talk, I just sit here waiting for them to self-destruct. But it's the temple, which is the barrister community. So just the structure of, I mean, when I first got into the courts in Spain, and they told me that I had to pay a procuradora as well as the abogado, I'm like, what? I gotta pay two assholes to screw me over? What? One wasn't enough, so you put in another layer? They kept on saying, lady, you're not paying me. I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to sue your ass off. Of course I'm not going to pay you. This is just like if you contract somebody for kitchen reforms and the house comes down, you're not going to pay them. You're going to sue them. So anyway, as I say, there's still some questions that I have about that. I mean, I go back in my research into the legal systems, Western legal systems. I go into the Magna Carta and back into, in fact, John Dickinson. He was penman of the Revolution. He's in my family tree. But there, I want to go back, and I have a lot of questions. There was a judge, Dickinson, who's in that family tree that was like 10,065. That's what, over 1,000 years ago. So, as I say, I go back to the origins. I mean, I am my father's daughter. So, yeah, the nurse at my father's memorial, she said, if anybody woke up and they saw your father sitting next to them, they knew they were in trouble. But they also knew that they were going to survive because he was there. Yeah, I mean, he said to me one time, he said, it's hard work. I mean, all the smarts in the world doesn't amount to a hill of beans if you're not willing to put in the hard work. I mean, this is one of the problems with my siblings and my mother and my ex-husband. I digress. I really don't like to pull my personal shit. I mean, it's an age-old story. It goes back to Abel and Cain and Adam and Eve. Will we ever learn? I doubt it. So let's take a listen first to this. I just started listening to them and I'm just like, oh my Lord. Oh, but you know what? Actually, shoot, I do want to play because Baron was like, I'm like, come on, Baron, I can't believe you.
Your humble host is having trouble getting through the material. It's dense, but it's so important. But there was a key line in there that she gave in her video last night where she talked about a Charlie Kirk tip website, and I thought they already got the guy who allegedly undid Charlie Kirk's time on this mortal plane. Why do we need a Charlie Kirk website? Because it wasn't open until March. We're going to get to all that. We're going to get to all that, ladies and gentlemen. But before I bring her in, one of the things I want to address is why the website, why the data center, why the White House stuff bothers me. You know, when Barack Obama was the president, a lot of people on the left were ecstatic, and I get it. Like, your guy wins, you want him to do the stuff you want done, right? And you don't want to let petty people like congressmen get in the way. And so when somebody just goes crazy with executive actions, you get kind of excited. You're like, hey,
this has been the problem. Your guy wins. I mean, when Obama got in the White House, my mother was like, oh, I just think it's wonderful, a black man in the White House. I was like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, my mom was always the most hypocritical, racist person I knew. I mean, my father, oh, poor man. She really had him fooled. That's why I don't also believe Erica Kirk. She's another Meghan McCain, and Cindy and Meghan McCain are involved in the cover-up in my case. I've been knocking at the door of the McCains since 2007. It was the senator that I worked for, Bennett Johnston from Louisiana. I mean, I know all of the people that these guys want to replace and be like, aspire to be like, I went to school with, and they're digging a grave, and these guys are just going to jump into it.
This is what we showed up for. Same thing happens when we talk about the filibuster. For those overseas who don't know what the filibuster is, there was an old parliamentary trick in the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate, really. There's no parliamentary trick that if someone was trying to advance a bill and you did not.
It's a good movie with Jimmy Stewart.
I wanted to advance.
Mr. Smith comes to Washington.
You would filibuster. You would start talking, and you would talk for hours on end, and you might talk for days on end. But as long as you had the microphone, there was no parliamentary maneuver to cause you to relinquish the microphone. And so what they did is they put a vote total there. And they said, well, if we can get 60 people to vote you off the mic, then you're done talking. That will end the filibuster. It'll break the filibuster. Well, there's nothing in the Constitution about a filibuster. It doesn't exist. There's nothing in the Constitution that specifies the parliamentary rules that will be adopted. It just doesn't even consider it. And so we've lived under this system for now 150 going on close to 200 years, I think. I mean, it's been a long time. We've had this sort of parliamentary trick where if you wanted legislation to pass and it was of any consequence, you had to have something of a supermajority to get it through the Senate. Otherwise, they would just filibuster. So there's been this, should we end the filibuster? Well, when your guys have the majority, even if it's slender, if you're a Democrat and the Democrats have the slender majority, you want to end the filibuster. Why? I want to run roughshod over the other side. Likewise, if you're a Republican, and your Republicans have a slim majority, and there's some act out there, there's some bill out there, there's some legislation you want advanced, and the Democrats are filibustering it, and you can't get to 60 to break the filibuster, you can't get to 60 out of 100 senators to break the filibuster, then you want to end the filibuster. You want to cram your legislation through. Same goes with executive power. When Barack Obama was in the White House, Democrats were all about executive power. They loved it. They were enamored with it. They wanted more of it. They wanted it to be used more often. Cram through this, cram through that, sign this, sign that, drone this person, drone that person, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is incredible how even the lawyers and the politicians are incapable of understanding how their actions and the different administrations have brought us to where we are and completely eroded all the rights of citizens as well as the executive, legislative, judicial branch. I mean, the whole thing's a freaking joke, a really bad joke. Washington was created in order to serve the American people. And these people just, make money and make entertainment after off the shit show. I mean, God darn it, all these guys. I'm like, why don't you ask America First Legal why they have not submitted out? I got cases standing in cause against all sorts of people at the IMF and the World Bank, State Department, White House, and I mean, nobody, no one ever will say, well, wait a second, no, you know, this, you're wrong on this point of law or that point of law, or, you know, no, they go, oh God, you should have become a lawyer, is how they usually respond. If they respond at all, because they're just like, oh God, this lady, she's looking for, want to talk about Armageddon? Yeah, but if we don't get it done in the courts and the political institutions, it's going to be on bloodshed on the battlefield. I've been telling everybody that for decades. I mean, I was horrified when I got into the courts. I'd never been in a courtroom in my life. I was like, what the frick are you people doing? I mean, okay, it was in Spain, and the assholes over at the State Department give me attitude of like, oh, Spain's a third world. They're not as developed as us. I'm like, you stupid ass. I hope you rot in prison. Baron Coleman, I mean, one of my favorite with this whole situation is, okay, Baron Coleman threatened to destroy patriotic housewife for stealing content. And then Baron Coleman is ignoring me as much as patriotic housewife I spoke with. And they even said they were looking for like crime stories. I'm like, Lordy Lord, let's sit down, pick your poison. I'll give you any subject you want. I'll give you all sorts of cases all over the place. And then she's like on the podcast, oh, we don't want to get in like any lawsuits. I was like, first off, if you know what you're doing, you're not going to get a lawsuit slapped against you, particularly a tiny little platform like hers. They're going after Candace Owens because it's a big one. Oh, I couldn't believe Candace. Today, 4 million subscribers. I promise you, it reminded me of Erica Kirk in the Charlie Kirk assassination. She's like, see, this is organic. This is not, we're not like mass media. We're at 4 million and this was done, you know, above board. I'm like, little girl, you are so in denial. I've been tracking and been examining how it's the algorithms that are, you know, turning these people into stars overnight. That happened to Baron Coleman and Trigger Smart. We were talking about it. How one night they went, you know, they didn't have really any traffic on their channel. Couple. So, and they went to bed and they woke up the next morning and there were like tens of thousands. That's not organic. This is algorithms. So, you know, and I'm like just sitting there listening to Candace because her platform has gotten all of this success in the past months because of the Charlie Kirk assassination. She's no different than Erica Kirk. And I don't know, I'm leaning more and more towards the possibility that Erica was not involved in the planning, you know, didn't really know anything about it. That was done high up by the Trump administration. And she's just not going to question anything. And she sees an opportunity here and she's going to take it. I mean, it is still possible that she met Trump in 2012. Okay, maybe it wasn't determined that she was going to marry Charlie Kirk from the beginning, because there is a speculation that there was this Philip Cabot, but he kind of didn't launch his career enough, wasn't becoming famous enough, so she dated him, and that's when it was switched to Charlie. So, like, you know, it's hard to say, because, like, as Megyn Kelly even said, I forget, I don't know if she went to the same school as, because her mom was like, oh, John JFK Jr. was going to that law school or whatever, because I think he went to Brown. But that they were going to the same law school and Megyn Kelly should go after him. And she was like, oh, Mom, you know, I'm not going to go after John JFK Jr. I mean, come on. If Megyn Kelly had John paying attention to her, she would have jumped at the chance, I'm sure. Not that believe me, he is not the prize. I mean, you talk about, once again, an entitled Kennedy, and proof in the mommy wars that the Kennedys and all of this psychopathic bullshit that they're promoting is self-destructive to everybody involved. So anyway, yeah, she's like, well, yeah, my mom was like, gotta go and get him. Erica Kirk's mom was the same thing. Oh, here, why don't you go and say hi to Charlie Kirk over there at the airport when they saw him? I mean, my mother, when I got back to Washington, her idea, I made it out alive. She had thought that I'd get killed and then she'd get money from my ex-husband. Or, you know, even all of the family fortune. I'll tell you, that one was a real piece of work. But so after I make it out of Spain alive and I get back to Washington, you know, her idea is, I'm going to, you know, keep me in poverty, and then I'll be obligated to find myself a meal ticket husband. Snag myself one of these guys, whether he's married or not. That's the name of the game in DC. I mean, I found it almost comical with the IMF Family Association and how the spouses were afraid that I'd steal their husbands. Then I get in with the secretaries, and the secretaries are afraid I'll steal their bosses. I mean, everybody in this town is out of control. It's one big joke on the American people. And then you have lawyers who become podcasters instead of doing anything about it.
And they were all excited about it. And Republicans sat back and wrung their hands. Oh, I can't believe what they're doing to us. That Obama's act.
No.
Well, times
No,
change. As the pendulum of elections swings, sometimes it swings away from you, or sometimes it swings towards you. Well, it swings towards the Republicans for a few years.
We had the Obama administration eroded rule of law and democracy in the country. And who followed him just built on that. And it's been that way since Nixon. I mean, Watergate was party politicking. My mom, when that happened, she was like, Nixon didn't do anything that anybody else isn't doing. I mean, even I'm a young child, and I'm like, well, haven't you always told us that two wrongs don't make a right? Yeah, I was never going to get into politics with my mom.
Republican in office, and Republicans are just enamored with this executive power. And that's essentially what we're going to talk about tonight. What should the limits of executive power be? How much executive power should we give a president over things like our identity? Believe it or not, that's an issue we're going to talk about tonight. Who are we as humans? What rights do we have as Americans?
Well, I'm in this discussion in the United States, but also our forefather, England. You know, in case anybody out there doesn't realize, particularly the lawyers and the politicians, our system was built on theirs and modeled after theirs. So, you know, you might have some parallels there that, you know, we might want to look at. Just a thought.
Who should be able to accumulate all that information into a singular database? Who should be able to control the big machine that determines how we live our lives? So we're going to talk about that. So that's one of the things. Second thing is
no one should control the big machine that determine how we live our lives. That's what the democracy and that's what the Constitution was about. That's what the founding fathers fought the War of Independence for. You know, one of my favorite in this, what do they call it? Stolen valor. All these guys, these Green Berets, I mean, they were going off about Mitch Snow, stolen valor, stolen. I'm like, excuse me, why don't you point your finger over at Eric Bolling? Stolen valor? He claims that he's related to Thomas Jefferson, sister of Thomas Jefferson. I did that family tree, and his family tree, his grandparents. I forget if it's Norway, but some North European country. I'm like, you little so-and-so. His only son died of an opioid overdose. And he's some big wig journalist. I mean, what qualifications? That man is a parasite on society, like most of the journalists out there. I mean, you talk about your stolen valor.
Again, before we bring Drey in, second thing is, I got these group texts with different podcasters. It's nearly unanimous that people are being unsubscribed from certain channels, like your humble host. So if you're watching, whether you're watching live or watching on replay, and you didn't get a notification, it might be because you've been unsubscribed.
Let's go. Okay.
That's
what
for getting scurried off the.
But he was. Hold on.
And that sometimes happens. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt there that that's what's happening, and it's not more nefarious than that. So if you've not subscribed or you think you've subscribed, just go double check. Those that just sort of breaks things wide open. But it's not ready to go tonight, so we're not going to be doing that one. But when we bring Drey in, we're going to talk about the limits of executive power. If you've not had an opportunity, let me show you her page real quick. If you've not had an opportunity,
well, he was going on and on about.
I thought, well, how do you? Okay, I get it. You know, so that kind of happens. So I think what we'll do tonight.
Here, I think this is it.
Knowledge about a subject that they almost have trouble breaking it down to like a fifth grade.
That intelligent people, they have, you know, so much knowledge about a subject that they have problems breaking it down and explaining it to you know, people who don't know anything about the subject. As Einstein said, if you know your subject well enough, you can explain it to a barmaid. Now, even as a child, and when the teachers were making the subjects too complicated for the other students, I'd always be like, look, this is what it is, they're overinflated ego assholes who are making this too complicated, talking over your head. And it's normal that you don't understand. Believe me, this is not as complicated as they're trying to make it out to be. I've seen this time and time and time again with teachers. Oh, I remember one guy, this is in the French school in Madrid. God, what a pretentious prick. I mean, there's a lot of them out there, but he really took the cake.
Grade level. It happens with experts. You hear them on TV, and sometimes you can't tell, are they being pretentious? Are they doing this on purpose? Are they trying to confuse everybody? Sometimes they're trying to sound smarter than they are because maybe they don't have a really firm grasp of what it is they're talking about. But I think oftentimes what it is they just are so familiar with the subject matter that they think everybody else has the knowledge. Mrs. Coleman used to complain about this with me. I would talk about things from work and she would start laughing and I'd say, what? She goes, I have no idea what you're saying. And I thought, well, how do you know? Okay, I get it. So that kind of happens. So I think.
See, this is also the problem that I'm having with Barron, and I was sure of it. And he just confirmed it here. He thinks that women are nothing but broodmares. I mean, he's your typical, Christian. He's Catholic. I think he might be Protestant. I'm not sure. Christian, definitely. But that women are nothing but broodmares. They have 8 kids. And he's like, yeah, go ahead and have more kids than you could afford. I mean, that was with Charlie Kirk. I was like, would you please stop that? We need to be focusing on quality, not quantity. And when I say quality, I'm not talking about eugenics. I'm talking about taking the children that God gave you and loving them and caring for them and giving them a good, solid education. I'm not for homeschooling, but we totally need reform in the schools. I mean, Tiffany Justice, she's another one who's gotten in the line of the people I want to see in the international courts. She did a great job in putting together chapters and building up the structure. Federation of American Women's Clubs overseas did the same thing under Carolyn Curtis Brown when it started in 1931, almost 100 years ago. But yeah, you can put in structures and institutions and everything like that, but you let psychopaths take over. Guess what it produces? Dom and dom and dom and dom again. So, this is one of the issues with the mommy wars. Okay, that's pretty clear. I keep on going on about, example of how all of these women are stabbing each other in the back and they're nothing but a bunch of greedy, overinflated ego narcissists, and is one of the biggest problems. That's why it doesn't matter if I'm dealing with the journalists, the lawyers, the politicians, the economists, restaurant managers, whatever. They think they're God's gift to the world because somebody gave them a certificate or a diploma. They were able to memorize enough things, check enough boxes to pass the test, and lo and behold, Lord, we got God here. And literally, that's, there's this ego problem. So, the guys, I mean, Jesse on Fire, he's admitted men only care about women because they want to sleep with them. So women, if it's a professional woman, it's like and I guess this is also why we got in this gender dysphoria crap. They either they want to sleep with them, and they still see them as a sexual object, or they do see them as a competent, as an adversary in the professional arena. And so if it's an adversary, well, if it's somebody lower on the status hierarchy, then they're either you don't pay attention to them because they can't give you anything. You have nothing to gain by allying with them because it's all about, power, money, and fame. So you have nothing to gain from them. And so you go around brown-nosing the people higher up. I mean, when this whole thing started, Barron was like, oh, maybe I'll be invited one day to on a pod, Candace Owens' podcast. He got his dreams within a couple months. He realized his dreams. I'm so sick and tired of these snot-nosed brats in this city. I come to realize my dreams, I'm like, What about us old ladies who want to realize our dreams of taking care of our children instead of becoming rich and famous? I mean, Barron, he uh, he quit his job as a lawyer to become a podcaster. I mean, if I was his wife and we had 8 children, he just became a grandfather as well. You could be damn certain I'd be out on the internet. I'd be, if he was gonna, particularly quit his job, I'd be making sure I knew everything about what was going on. No, 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 no. She's too busy in the kitchen. See, keep them barefoot and pregnant. This is why all of the Baron Colemans of the world have sided with my ex-husband in the keep them barefoot and pregnant. It's the old boy network. She's your wife. You can do whatever you want. I mean, this is no different than what they're complaining about in Muslim countries, and that women are oppressed because of this. I'm like, you idiots. The same dynamics is going on in the West, and in fact, the women used to have rights within the family and marriage, but now they don't. With the feminists coming in, they've stripped them of their rights, and this gave leverage for women not to be abused. Because it'd be like, you want to keep your money, you want to keep your property, you better treat me well, because half of it is mine. Because women did. This is what, the whole Renaissance was about. It didn't just advance the rights of men, even though the women bitched. No, they just were bitching. Of course, it advanced the rights of women as well in terms of property. I mean, where are our rights tested? Not whether we can have a sex change operation or we want to be called he when we're a she. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Our rights are tested when we get into the court, when we get into a judicial system, when we have somebody like Tyler Robinson who is accused of murder, yet there's no evidence to indicate that it's true, yet there's a good possibility that this guy is going to go to prison. They're going to go for the death penalty for him to cut a plea deal. And then they can sweep it under the carpet. There'll be no trial. That's been the tactic of the government. I mean, under the new Jim Crow, but we can go back farther. But this is what the war on terror, why the war on drugs, the war on terror has been continued, because it has been propaganda campaigns for the American government to erode the rights of citizens and get in the back door and start with all of their party politicking and destroy our political institutions. While the Baron Colemans of this world, like, subscribe on my podcast. So I was like, gotcha moment in Baron Coleman. I was like, yeah, we see, because I'm sure for him, his wife, as I say, it's a broodmare, but these women are colleagues. They're intelligent women. Whereas his wife is just a stupid bimbo who is incapable of understanding these complex things of law. And I'm sure, I'm the opting-in homemaker who can't get a voice on the podium. So without even looking at anything that I've done, I'm a dumb bimbo. I mean, he'll have to explain everything. I don't know. You know, as I say, once the bloodshed and everybody has somebody in their family who has been killed, then I don't think that we're gonna. Everybody, will, you know, you'll still get more podcasters. You'll still get people just espousing propaganda. History just keeps on repeating itself.
That Amazon's going to put up with all this smoke plumes and stuff, and it's a processing, computer center.
So you come across this idea, you because you're chasing corruption, because you've linked this corruption to this processing power that
I've been chasing corruption for 20 years. I haven't moved. I mean, when they took my children, I didn't come back to DC to get back on anybody's invite list. God, no. I am even like, please, Lord, if I become rich and famous, keep me off the invite lists. But no, I'm a stupid idiot because I'm not popular. I mean, what does that have to do with it? I haven't been trying to be popular.
they appear to be building under the ballroom. You realize, okay, they have all this ability to process. And if you're going to process, you have to process something. So we know what that is. But the question is, where's it coming from? What are they putting in there? Is that sort of where you started before you came across what you came across?
Yeah. Well, and also I have to hand it to, Larry Ellison of Oracle, who has been really my guiding light through all of this, because he's done all of this in various capacities before. And so with, this particular situation, the only reason I took the approach I did in the way that I was kind of looking for this data is because of what Ellison and Oracle had been doing for the past 10 years.
Okay, Larry Ellison. Oracle, that's one of those problematic. Who is this? I know the name is familiar. The Oracle Corporation. That's, another of the techie liberal companies that, I've been looking for partners and funding for a social media platform for global expats for 20 years. That's what Microsoft became interested in the project 20 years ago, and that's when my ex-husband flipped out. Ever since then, I contacted Microsoft again when I got back to the States, but they were like, oh no, we're just doing cloud stuff. I'm like, okay, that was God's will. Oh Lord, I hate to even imagine what would have happened if I had gotten in bed with those people. So yeah, anyway, oh my God, he said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wives. Oh, okay, this guy needs an investigation into who he is. 6 children. Raised in a Reformed Jewish home. Yeah, okay. Everybody, I'm sorry. But the minorities, they're taking over the country. And Tucker Carlson is bitching and complaining about white replacement. Well, I'm living it and been offered up as the sacrificial lamb by people like Tucker Carlson and his dumb bimbo wife, who also, once again, proves that the women in the United States are nothing but broodmares.
Years up until 2024, when he was building those personal dossiers on some, 5 billion Americans out of 8 billion Americans on Earth, mind you.
8 billion.
And
8 billion.
Yeah, at the time. Well, when those numbers were run. 5 billion people. Yeah, he was creating these very detailed dossiers. And in 2024, he went to court over it and had to end up paying out $115 million lawsuit because, you can't really be keeping those kinds of things on people. And, I just think it was convenient timing, because with that, the way that he did it was quite clever. Like, he had all these websites that he would buy and he'd merge them together and he'd put little cookies on each website. So Blue Kai, for instance, would have this little invisible, like a little box that would appear when you go onto the website, and you wouldn't see it or anything. And it would ping something to your browser. And then your browser would ping over to this other website that he bought that had like a couple of pixels that would be capturing information. Like, he had this way that he did it. And I remember studying that and I was like, that's so crazy. Like, what a crazy person thing to do. And given that he's the shadow president, Trump's words, not mine, the CEO of everything, I felt like he was probably a good indication of how to look at these websites that I was finding.
So if we go back in time, you're building on, I think, you're standing on the shoulders of giants and looking at the privacy angle to corruption. So go back to, did you ever see the movie Snowden or follow all that? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, Edward Snowden. He was a little freak. I like him.
He was a little while. And then you had Julian Assange. These are two people who were kind of famous for creating either an infrastructure to release secrets or just going as
kind of famous. I mean, really famous, particularly compared to Baron Coleman. Yeah, say Baron Coleman's name around the world, they're going to go, who is that? Julian Assange? Yeah, everybody knows who he is and, you know, why he has legal problems. And he whistleblowed on the American people. But, and what's funny is I actually have Julian Assange, I think it's the real one, following my Twitter. I was like, but if I had stolen documents, all of the journalists would be scratching each other's eyes out for an exclusive interview. With these Epstein files, I'm like, you guys, I've been handing you all the names with legal cases against all of these people for corruption of the people that are in the Epstein files for 20 years. But the lawyers won't do anything. The journalists won't cover it. Because nobody wants to be involved in any unpleasantness, anything that would rock the boat. As long as you remain in the, I'm just going to sit here and bitch about this. But rest assured, government, I am not going to do anything about this. And I'm not going to give a voice to anybody who wants to actually do anything about this. So, you know, this is where our freedom of speech is. And this is where the journalists, they're propagandists. How can they claim, you know, how can they defend themselves under freedom of speech when what they're producing is propaganda meant to distract the people's attention away from what the government is doing with the economy and what the judicial system has been doing for decades. I mean, Guantanamo Bay, we have all sorts of examples. The New York courts, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, when he was arrested in 2011, I said, party politicking all the way. Never would they have gone after him if they didn't want to take him down and out of the presidential running in France. And that's precisely what happened. Afterwards, when it came out, like, oh yeah, you saw these guys dancing a jig, and I was like, I told you so. When Hillary Clinton lost 2016, the night before the election, I was at the National Women's Democratic Club here in Washington. Said, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. Next day, I'm like, told you so. I keep on telling everybody, told you so, told you so. Yet I'm a stupid bimbo who doesn't know jack shit. And Barron brings on Drey Dossier for her learned opinion.
As a contractor grabbing the secrets and releasing them. But either way, both of those gentlemen kind of opened up our eyes a great deal to the fact that the federal government was sitting on a lot of secrets about the lives of American citizens and people around the world. But do we really care about, you know, some guy in Swahili or whatever that does, I don't even know if that's a country.
They hear this all the time from Barron, but we don't care about that group. We don't care about this group. We don't care about that group. See, this is one of the problems with the lawyers. They only care about this group or that group, you know, as the lawful rights of mankind. You can see behind me, that's one of the books I have there. That's Paul Seigart, father of Marianne Seigart, feminist celebrity journalist in the UK who also needs to explain herself in a court of law. But the lawful rights of mankind, the Alex Joel, who did a book review of it in 1985, said, yeah, well, the problem is lawyers aren't going to understand how to implement international conventions into the modus operandi of the court system. And I was like, ding dong, you hit it on the nail. That's what I'm here for. No, but Marianne Seigart, she's just busy promoting her book, The Authority Gap, Why Women Are Not Taken Seriously and What We Can Do About It. And I'm like, Marianne, behave seriously and you'll be taken seriously. But then we got these dumb bimbos out there pretending to be as learned as the managerialist, white-collar criminal men that they're following.
Well, it depends on what his genomes look like. You never know.
That's true. But what I'm saying is these people came years ago, some 5, 10, 15 years ago, and basically told us, hey, your federal government is weaponizing your data against you. And then they kind of went away because they were both persecuted or prosecuted, right? They both sort of went away.
Didn't Snowden go to, is he still in Russia or did he?
No,
he is? Okay.
Yeah. Julian Assange, I think, is in custody and Edward Snowden's in Russia. He fled, I think, through Hong Kong to...
Imagine having to flee to Russia for safety. Oh, God.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird world, right?
God. Yeah.
And he's not,
Well, but imagine fleeing Spain and getting to your own country and everybody telling you to go fuck off. Your family and friends, they cancel you. You're thrown to the wolves in DC labor markets that openly discriminate against white privileged Americans and old ladies and opting in homemakers. I mean, I was furious that with all the Ukrainian refugees and stuff, all of these refugees, oh, we got apartments, we're going to feed them, we're going to house them for free. And I can barely find a minimum wage job because I've been canceled. I mean, the U.S. Constitution is toilet paper.
You know, and after they left, it kind of got quiet on the data front. There was the Vault 7 release.
This freezing up shit. Sorry.
A few years ago, I don't know if you followed that.
Yeah. Well, to be fair though, they had insider information, and I would love to be just very explicit about this. I know nothing that is not publicly available to be persecuted to the fullness of law. No, yeah, they did have the insider. Like he worked with the CIA very closely, and he was like, "Wow, what we're doing sucks. Like we shouldn't." I remember I was in college at the time of Edward Snowden's big leaks, and I was coming out of my. You know, my family was conservative growing up and stuff, living in the South. And I was very much of the mind, I'm like, well, I don't have anything to hide. So who cares if they're listening to my phone calls? Kind of, 18-year-old mindset. Right. And wow, yeah, like what a time of with that information. I mean, imagine making the decision to release that kind of information. Like, what's going to happen.
Yeah, you know exactly what's going to happen. So that's sort of the background, though. So you enter the stage. I think you've become, in my mind, one of the go-to people on this particular issue. The weaponization of data against Americans by the government, the weaponization of data by the government against its own citizens, or at least the potential for it. So you know all this, you have this background, you've kind of figured out sort of famously in the last few months that something's going on under the ballroom, and it's a massive processing center. It's going to require a lot of data. Where's the data going to come from?
Sort of famously in the past couple months. I mean, it's all about fame and fortune. If you're famous, welcome to the club. If you're not popular, we're not going to invite you. See, this is just such a problem. She's an expert because she's become famous in the past couple months.
Talk me through what you've done the last few weeks to try to bridge that gap and answer that question.
Well, I think the Genesis mission was probably my first investigation.
What's that? What's the Genesis mission?
The Genesis mission is the Manhattan Project for the Future of AI, is the mission statement. It is the DOE, the Department of Energy. It's actually a fascinating story. So the Manhattan Project, as we all know, created the bomb, the atomic bomb, and there were all these secret laboratories in, one in Tennessee, in Texas or New Mexico, all of these different laboratories. And there were all these scientists that, would live there and didn't know that they were building. Okay, whatever. I don't need to go into those stories. But the Manhattan Project, out of that was born the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy essentially was this, handshake between the government and science, and the privatized, part of science, saying, look, we know that science needs to allow for some level of experimentation in order to work. Government doesn't really like experimentation because the whole point of, creating guidelines is for that. So they kind of had an agreement, like, you do the day-to-day, we'll help with some of the funding, but like, it has to be used for the greater good of the country. And so they renamed it to the Department of Energy, and it has continued after all these years. And so the Genesis mission is this rebranding of a rebrand, the rebranding of the Department of Energy, kind of, where they want us to believe that the big thing that will want us.
Sorry. No, I just wanted to say at the same time, no, we don't like to get involved in investigation. Tesla, when he died, all of his files were taken. They don't like to be involved in like scientific research. No, they just go around stealing it from their scientists. Oh, come on. This thing is... Oh, let's see if I close up some of this stuff. Well, I wanted to pull that up. Okay, let's see that. There we go. Thanks.
What they're saying is the big thing that they're building is equivalent to that of the Manhattan Project, right? This AI something is going to be this just huge. And it's hard to quantify that, like what that means. Like, okay, so a bomb, has a certain explosion. Like you can kind of quantify how impressive a bomb is. I guess how many GPUs can you eat quicker? Like, I don't know for AI, but I started looking into it. And that's when I found Glenn's Garden. He's this incredible scientist, a computer genius. And he has a great article or a couple of articles out on a website talking about the supercomputers that are getting built. And that's how I found Ellison's.
So you're looking at Genesis. It puts you onto Larry Ellison. So with that background, how do you end up on what you discovered here in the last, I don't know, a couple of weeks?
Well, I think the supercomputer was that kind of pivot, because I've been like obsessed with that, because according to Glenn, who worked with the Department of Energy, he and I connected, he said that right now, the only supercomputer that doesn't have a home is Solstice. So like they're building at Argonne 2 supercomputers, and one of them is going to live at Argonne, and each lab has a supercomputer. But then there's Solstice, the biggest supercomputer in America that's getting built, has no home. And that's no small thing. It's like, well, that takes 18 months of preparation minimum, right? Just before you can even start getting whatever that looks like into a supercomputer is just a bunch of data racks, basically, into something. And so that's when I started thinking like, oh, I wonder if that's going, under the White House. And that was kind of my most recent revelation with that. And I think just kind of tracking that and going through all these Department of Energy websites and all these other websites and seeing at the bottom that National Design Studio, and just thinking to myself, like, why is it a hyperlink? Like, why is there a byline for a government website? That's weird. And
so let's back up there. Okay, so that's obviously where we're heading. So you have this idea that, okay, there are these massive supercomputers that the government has determined that are equivalent of the Manhattan Project for the 21st century. The Manhattan Project being the famous project that created the nuclear weapon. This is the equivalent of that. That was the 20th century's greatest achievement in government. Now we have the 21st century's greatest achievement in government. Is going to be this AI computing capacity. We know where some of them are going to be. They're going to be at Argonne, wherever that is, some physical location. But there's one supercomputer. There's the greatest. And
we don't know who's paying for it.
But then there's the supercomputer to end all supercomputers, the biggest and baddest one of them all. And there's no known location for this. You look at it and you say, hey, that might be what's going under the ballroom based on the words of the president saying they're building something amazing under there. It's a military complex. It's a computer and all that. Now, as you're fishing around, you come across what purport to be government websites. And you notice at the bottom of the government website, it kind of lists who created the website or who owns the website. What is?
Well, I always go down to the privacy policies of any website that I'm on, especially if it's got a yellow eagle on it claiming I can Trump our exit. And so like I go down to find the privacy policies, and it's right above the privacy policy is that, same, size font and everything, and it's hyperlinked. And so I remember looking at it a few weeks ago when I was sitting with my friend. He was going through Trump RX, and I was like, what is that? And we clicked to it, and it's just some, Silicon Valley kind of BS department that we don't need that's prettying up the government. But I think the fact that it's so close to the privacy policy, I was like, well, that's interesting placement. Like there are things that are not quite like accidents all the time with it. And so that's kind of how I got there.
And the hyperlink says National Design Studio. That's the name of it. So
it's designed and engineered in DC by National Design Studio. And I thought that was interesting wording too. It's engineered in DC. Like I know that it's kind of one of those like tech bro terms, but it also felt like if it's going to be above a privacy policy, like they're being specific about like, well, we told you a little bit like under qualification of what it is.
So you find this hyperlink that says National Design Studio, designed and engineered by National Design Studios. It's on these government websites, Trump RX and others. What did you learn about it when you started fishing around on the National Design Studio?
Not a lot, which is pretty consistent with the new formats of these websites. Like I felt the same way with Genesis Mission. It just kept sending me in circles. These websites have so much going on, but they say nothing. And you're like, okay, like it's the font's always huge. And there's just, I learned nothing from this website, which is why I was like, all right, we got to start looking in other places if we want to know what's going on here.
And so where did you look?
Well, I started with the executive order that for the National Design Studio. I just tried to trace back when this turned into a government agency and how much it was costing and where it was, getting funded from. And it's the same initiative as Doge, and, it kind of starts unraveling as there.
So the National Design, so the President of the United States, Donald Trump, issues an executive order, and what does he say?
I can pull it up exactly. The executive order, improving our nation through better design, which is so, and essentially it's having people who are, former and current billionaires volunteer to beautify the government, which is kind of funny because on the National Design Studio's website, if anybody goes on it, whatever, they have a history of design, and it's like 4 pictures of like different logos that were once designed for the US. So there's not really, I feel like everybody's kind of being sold this idea that he wants to beautify the space. He wants to paint the ground, blue because he wants it to look beautiful. He wants to build a ballroom because he wants it to look beautiful. There's nothing about aestheticizing this it's not vain. There's a purpose, I feel like, for every piece of this, kind of architecture.
So from the executive order, we're going to beautify the country. We're going to do it through this company called National Design Studio. Is that a federal agency or is that a private company?
So it is an initiative, and there's a couple of things that are important to mention. So
this thing is going bonkers. I'm going to try tomorrow. It's been raining here, but a tourist came and they said, like, the mall, it was all closed. And this has got to have something to do, because then they said, in the fountain, it was all dry. I was like, this got to have something to do with the ballroom. So if it's not raining tomorrow, I'm going to go with my camera and take a tour around.
So there's some dates here that are important. In section 3 of the, I had to cut a lot of this from the video just because I tried to stay focused on it, but these dates I do think are important, especially when we go to talk about the Kirk stuff later. Section 3 talks about implementing America by design, and the chief design officer is going to have produced initial results by July 4th, 2026. And this was signed in August of 2025. So I think that's interesting that it gave an initial results date of July 4th. And then there's also a sunset clause in here that says that this agency that it's creating is going to wind down in 2028. And so I also thought that was an interesting flag where I'm like, why do we need to sunset something that's so desperately needed? If it's like a tech service of sorts, like beautifying in tech, like that's probably something we're going to need ongoing. And if they want to digitize everything, that's going to take years. Like that Iron Mountain has hundreds of thousands of millions of pieces of paper in it that need to be digitized. So it seems weird to wind something down in 2028 and have, the results in July 4th.
But is National Design Studio so that is a federal initiative. That's not a private company.
It is the exact terminology is it's like one of the C3.
IC3.
Yeah. What was Doge? It was the same thing. It was the federal initiatives, but like it's off the books basically.
Okay. So it's a short-term temporary initiative under the guise of the federal government that is run by private individuals.
Yeah, run by private individuals and backed by private individuals.
And so they, like Elon Musk famously was on Doge. He wasn't a government employee, he didn't take a paycheck, but he had temporary, I think they last 180 days or 270 days. They have temporary access as if they were federal employees. That's kind of a hybrid position. You're private, but we're going to give you the access of a federal government employee.
Yeah, when they're not really supposed to have that much access. I think he obviously went a little off
the time with contractors. I mean, that's nothing big deal.
Off the rails, to say the least, with it. But the type of government entity that it is just like it's supposed to be temporary, and so they're not supposed to have like this same carte blanche pass. But the fact that the studio is reporting to Susie Wiles in the executive office, I'm like, well, that's not a design studio. Susie Wiles. I mean, we've seen the pictures. She doesn't care about the beautification of stuff. Come on.
So Susie Wiles, being the chief of staff for the President of the United States, probably the top 5 most powerful people in the country at any given moment because they sort of set the agenda for the president. They control access to the president. They set his daily schedule, for example. So the chief of staff is a very important position. So talk me through, okay, now we got an idea what National Design Studio is. We see that it's hyperlinked on these websites and that they're designed and engineered in DC by National Design Studio. So what does that mean to you? Well, like you see that and now what?
Well, I see a company that's set up the same way that Doge kind of was, and that makes me nervous because I know Doge was a huge data grab. I mean, the day that that Congress got locked out of the Department of Education, remember, and they were doing that was the first day that it kind of like hit me like a train that, this is going to be easy for them. Like to take over the government is going to be easy. I mean, look at how easy that was. And that was just the first, let's see what we can get away with data grab. And so seeing the same structure, and then when I started kind of pulling on the threads of the people behind it, like Joe Gebbia, and saw the, oh, he was on the Tesla board. Oh, he took Ellison's seat on the Tesla board. Oh, he was with Doge. Like, oh, that's when my brain starts putting together all those other threads.
Well, let's put the people in place. So we have the National Design Studio. That doesn't mean anything to me at the moment because, I'm watching your video. I've just heard the word for the first time. Who is on the National Design Studio? You just mentioned Joe Gebbia. Joe Gebbia is who? Joe
Gebbia he is the chief design officer of the National Design Studio, current former CEO of Airbnb. He stepped back in 2022 though.
And why does that raise a red flag for you that he's on the National Design Studio?
I mean, it doesn't until it does. Like I found that interview of him when I was trying to learn about him, and I was listening to him talk, and he brought up Peter Thiel and the, all of the foundations and Kushner and stuff. And I was like, oh, well, okay. So we see where the alignment is here. My feelings of Airbnb aside, seeing that he was a part of Doge is just a huge red flag for me. And it just seemed like, the way that he was talking about the design studio, he referred to it as like, we're doing something like the Manhattan Project. Like he used those terms too. And I was like, oh no, is this like part of this Genesis mission situation? And so he just kind of set off general, like, oh, this is unwell. I feel unwell about this.
Are there any other former Doge employees that are on the National?
Oh yeah.
Studio? Okay.
So Big Balls is in there. I forget what his.
To be clear, that's his name. We're not just calling him.
Oh yeah. No. That he self-chosen name. You're on your choice. And so he's on there. And then there was so you've got John Kafaza. He's the product designer. You've got Peter Arnell, the U.S. chief brand architect. What's a brand architect? I mean, I know that a lot of this is like Silicon Valley. Like, I think anybody working in marketing will probably be like, oh, listen, there's a lot of redundant type of roles, but like, okay. So then you've got Michael Novia. It's a bunch of bros too. John Kafiza, Darshan Phillips.
I've been scrutinizing.
Yeah, you got
driving me crazy. I've been scrutinizing all
came over from Doge.
All of
the people who came over from Doge are
the user side of all of these platforms for over 20 years, because I started looking at it when I was doing my market research. Nobody knows what market research is these days, but yeah, it is a very, very important part. Like you want to figure out if your ideas are going to work or not before you just jump into the weed. So anyway, I've been looking at the user side interface. I mean, when I was at the IMF, it gave me a good example of how it's being implemented within bureaucratic government agencies and how these stupid secretaries, I don't know if the economists are, they come, the lunchroom, they come and have lunch every day. So I see them every day. And I give my little elevator speeches, and I was talking to one guy yesterday, I think it was, and I was like, yeah, I mean, stupid secretaries. And he just like bowed his head because he knew what I was talking about. I mean, what is that? Ana Rosa of ICD, SA. Oh my God. I had thought I had seen the worst of the worst with Elizabeth Elliott. I mean, she would be screaming and yelling. Nobody could. This is the secretary of Charmini Curry, the head of the department. I was like, how could this woman have this witch? And then she'd be like, oh, my mother and I are going to the Kennedy Center this evening. I was like, oh, you little pretentious bimbo. This is why the whites are getting a bad name in our country. But I mean, just the swamp needs raining. I don't need any more, committees and promises, and you need some good old-fashioned lawyers who are going to go and say this is bullshit.
Joe Gebbia, and I would have to pull up the court case that's against Doge. Big Balls came from Doge. And then Akash, I believe I talked about him in my video as well. He's Doge, and he's important because I believe he helped create the AI tool that was slicing the federal agencies when Doge was in the White House. It was called SweetRex, and it was the deregulation AI tool that they built using Google Gemini. I believe he was a part of that, but I'd have to,
So we have the background, we have the formation of the entity, We have the name of the entity. We have the types of people who work there and the sort of things they're doing. Now, knowing that we're here. Where do you go next to say, hey, this is a problem? Because right now these are just some people, and maybe they worked at a department you did or didn't like, and this is a kind of a weird effort to beautify the electronic architecture or the user interfaces people see. Where do you go? Oh my gosh, we've got a problem.
Well, seeing that when I looked at the privacy policy and it was contradicting itself, like for instance, Trump RX is adjacent to healthcare, even if it's not selling you anything directly, it's close enough for that discomfort to be there. And so seeing that there was another hyperlinked website, that made me nervous because it was being hosted on a different agency site like that hyperlink. And we don't normally within federal governments, you can't go on the IRS government and have a hyperlink to the FBI page and stuff, right? And just knowing the little bit that I do about data and the cross-contamination of stuff, it just made me nervous that maybe, and knowing what I know about Larry Ellison, that could those pages talk to each other at all? And so let's look at the code. Let's see what's going on there.
Oh, Lord. All right.
Top of my head. So I'm Googling stuff on the side where I'm looking at, okay, well, it says it's running this and this. What's PostHog? What is it doing? And where does it go? And so, you can see how the rabbit hole just takes a lot of turns probably quickly.
So you jump on Trump RX, for example, just one of the websites that this National Design Studio is hyperlinked on. You do your inspect of the source. You see there's some programs running. What do you discover about those programs relative to how your data is being treated?
Well, they're collecting a lot of data. They have True checked for pretty much everything. And PostHog is a private company, which is fine. The government can use private companies to host, to help collect some data. But the key word is some, because the difference is when you're on a federal website versus any other website, like the website we're on right now, or like, social media and stuff. There are laws about how much information the government is allowed to get from you without your consent and knowledge. And those are all these privacy acts that we have. And so, seeing any bit of like when you go to any other, website, like if you go to the Delaware LLC website or whatever, and you click that, you're not going to see any kind of routing where something leaves the website and comes back to it, because leaving it is putting your data at risk. And that's going against the federal law of what they're allowed to do with your data and not, especially if it's not anonymized. And I saw that my IP was not anonymized. I saw that they had given me a location. I was on all of my separate browser stuff, but it was pinpointing my locations. And yeah, it was just every time I refreshed it, it was immediately just pinging stuff out of that website. And so that's why the hyperlinks to all these other websites is let's make sure we know where it's going.
You go to Trump RX. While you're fishing around, you think, I wonder what's going on the back end of this computer on this website. You inspect the source. You see it's calling the data from the source, from Trump RX. It's pulling your data, your non-anonymized data, your IP address, your location, and others. It's pulling it to a private company. Is that what you said? PostHog is a private company?
Yeah, it's a private company, but the government does use private companies like that, from time to time. But what it is it's a malleable company. So you can create your own level of security. So typically with federal websites, it's a very, very secure, they can make it lock it down very tightly. And so the fact that I'm seeing visible on this page that there's all of this, all of these asterisks and letting all of these reports, masking all inputs and as false and this and that going out, that just from my bare minimum knowledge of code does not look safe. And so if it's a federal website that's adjacent to healthcare,
And so do we know what the private company is doing with this non-anonymized data they're getting? Do we know? Because this data is being transmitted. It's not at rest.
I don't think the government knows that this data is being tracked. That's the thing is I feel like there's no way that the government right now is keeping track of what data is being tracked, or if that these privacy laws are being infringed upon. I can't imagine that they do. So no, I don't think that they have, and that would be our only way to know what's going on. I mean, they can't even figure out what's going on under the ballroom,
You're talking about the congressional folks?
Yeah, sorry, the congressional. Okay. Yeah, that's how we would know how our data is being used, right?
But if it's data being transmitted and it's going to a private entity, how are you concerned that it's making its way into the we'll just call it a data center for lack of a better phrase.
What's processing through a post hog is like the processing. So it's not storing the data there. It's pinging it. It's like when you make a phone call and it hits the telephone tower, that's a safe telephone tower. But the fact that NDS Studios has all of these subdomains under it, which is when I was pulling at this, is what I started finding. I was like, well, where are they storing this data? If it's pinging over there and I'm on Trump RX and there's this National Design Studio that's hyperlinked to it, and this post hog code is saying that it's routing through NDS, that means that that NDS is storing stuff. And if it's storing stuff, then that means there are probably other subdomains that are storing it as well. And that's okay. This is why I wanted to have you on. This is clarifying it for me. Your concern is not that post hog is storing all the data. Your concern is that post hog is pulling your data to be stored by the federal government somewhere, and you don't know where that somewhere is. Post hog is allowing analytics at a granular level that the federal government is not allowed to get from us without our explicit permission. That's what post hog is doing.
Okay.
And post hog does that with a lot of websites. That's just what their company is. Like it or not, that's what it is.
So that would be an intentional design inclusion. Somebody designed this website, intentionally included this post hog.
Post hog is configurable. So it's a legitimate, widely used product analytics platform that Silicon Valley uses a lot. And it's got configurable alternatives, right, to Google Analytics and stuff. So it can be safer than Google Analytics, which is great. But you can see in the script whether or not something is configured, how safely it is, right? And when you see these pings going off all the time and you're seeing that it's routing and bouncing through your domain, and then it's going to another domain, you can see that that's not exactly safe, because the second data makes one ping outside of wherever you are, where your location is, it's vulnerable. Like no matter what is, which is why the federal government has its own servers that are the federal government servers, and they have backups that are papers in Iron Mountain.
So were you able to determine where the data ultimately is resting? Or you're just surmising
it went to this back door that was it was locked shut. So the subdomains, when I was pulling on those threads, like there was that one 150 line piece of code that was built on only NDS's studios, that was their own custom script code that was the always active monitoring. Mm-hmm. And that didn't have like a post hog situation with it. My friend who looked at it, and he's like, I think that it's tracking through here, and this is one of the like later stages of it, or whatever he said in my video. I'm not being as eloquent about it, but when we tried to trace that back, it dead ends. Everything was locked behind that Cloudflare. The love is a skill. Okay, so it's a good time to transition. So now we know data's going somewhere. We don't know where it's going. It's going behind some locked door. We don't know whether we assume that's but we know it's a private server because it kept hitting NDS as the not .govs. So you've got TrumpRx.gov, but it's actually going to an NDS website, and is where that data was going.
Okay. So you say, hey, if TrumpRx is doing this, are there other websites doing this as well? What do you find?
Well, I go to the NDS Studios website to see what they're willing to share that they have worked on. So it's the Federal Food Commission, or the RFK's Food Federal Commission, I think it is. I'll pull it up right now. They have Trump RX, Real Food 2026, realfood.gov. And so these are all .gov websites. So there's this sense of, it's government websites. But when you look at where the code is pinging around to, it ends up on a .nds.gov website, which is a different domain. They also have the Genesis mission, and they have Trump accounts, which are those, if you have a baby, we'll start a Trump account for you. I think
just to clarify, these are all National Design Studio websites that are purporting to be government agency websites.
So these are on the studio. National Design Studio, when you go to their work section, it shows a list of the websites that they've beautified for the government. Trump RX is one. They've created Real Food as the other. The Genesis mission, they've beautified those websites. The Trump accounts, they've beautified those websites. So they're this aesthetic layer to the government. Some of these are new, like Tech Force is a new government agency, but like Safe DC is not necessarily this is part of a different initiative that's a different government entity. And what's interesting about Safe DC is I didn't see the same post hog script running through Safe DC. And I think that that's because it's still heavily attached to like the FBI and like the local policing there. And it's not its own separate thing like Real Food is or Tech Force. But I did think that was interesting. So that there's still that kind of distinction between church and state there.
So how many total websites did you find that were either under construction or deployed?
Well, that's a different question. Let me pull up that sheet. So on their website, just to be clear, they are advertising 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're advertising 8 websites that they have beautified. I found on my end, let me pull up my little.
Well, let me just say, before you say what you found, how did you find more?
At the repository. So every website has a certification. Anytime you build any website, they give it a certification, like IP numbers, all of that. And so I went to the GitHub, which is there's a lot of tech JavaScripts and stuff that are saved there. But there's a big repository that's kept up by the government that's all of the .gov websites. So you can, trace any, like if you see a federal agency and you're like, oh, what agency does that belong to? You can go to this repository. And they also have, it's called .gov or something, it's some redundant name that you can go and just check to see what agency owns which websites, because the idea in America is that agencies get to own the tech that they're working on, and that they get to process the information, and then it's all under the umbrella of the executive branch or whatever, but it is like the agency's own proprietary, like they can do their own processes with it, which is why every government entity looks so different and like kind of functions different, and the websites look different, but it's all on their own servers. And so that's the idea. So not one person, it's not the president who runs every single agency, it's the agencies that have their own agency in how they run it.
In theory, the Department of Justice runs their websites, the FBI runs their website,
and that they're not as what am I trying to say? They're impartial. They're not left wing, right wing. That the idea is that they run an impartial government.
Yeah, they're just there to perform a service. HHS is there to perform health and human services. They're not there to collect data to funnel back under the White House ballroom and use it to control humans. In theory, theoretically. So you discover how many total websites under construction?
So at the time of reporting, and I'm updating my GitHub as we speak, I have in front of me over 69 entries total. And then as I was reporting, which is crazy, as I was reporting last night, this was like literally 2 a.m. my time on Pacific time, there were 3 new passport.nds.gov websites that popped up. And it was these, let me pull them up, my little passports. And it like popped up that morning. It was passportstaging.nds.gov, passport staging with an asterisk, and then passport photos. Yeah, there's a lot of passport push. And it made me think about the Trump passport that's being rolled out kind of too. And I don't know.
So let's take let's pause here, take a very global look at where we are.
Yeah.
We have an entity that's been formed by the Trump administration called National Design Studios. National Design Studios is operating under the guise that they're just going to come through and make some websites look a little prettier. But what they're really doing is making it so that when your humble host jumps on a website and says, oh, I'd like to see Trump RX prescriptions, my IP address, my location, my data is being collected. And I look and I say, hey, I take asthma medicine because I cough all the time and everyone thinks I take lisinopril and that's why I cough. I have great blood pressure. I don't take lisinopril. I'm like Teddy Roosevelt. I cough a lot. I have bad asthma. And I get on there and I say, wonder if my asthma medicine could be found cheaper by looking on Trump RX. But what's really happening is they may or may not give me a cheaper alternative to my medication. But what they're really doing is they're pulling my data out and they're saying this guy at this IP address, at this location, using this browser, using all this stuff, he's looking for this medication. Now, if I go to the passport, oh, now he's looking for a passport. Then I go to the Trump account. Oh, he's setting up 8 Trump accounts for his kids and a new one for the grandbaby that was just born 4 days ago. So this guy, you're starting to build a profile, a dossier.
Dare I say a dossier?
Yes. So that's kind of what we're talking about is what they've done is, and we'll go to one more in just a second, login.gov, but what they've done is they've created the capacity to build a complete dossier of all your federal interest. Every time you hit a federal website, they're able to determine what it is you're doing there, who you are, where you're located. And in an instant, they can pull this into their servers, and then now they can run their AI processes on it. Now, in theory, what my thought is, and I'll go ahead and spoil the surprise, consumer data is readily available. Healthcare data is readily available. Cell phone location data is readily available. Car location data, very readily available. Now I know who this is looking at Trump RX. I know who it is looking at Passport. I know who it is looking at Login. And now I can import all this other data and I can marry it either with tokens or just IP addresses or whatever. And now I can build out a complete profile. Not only that, I can now bring in the NSA data. I can look at your emails. I can look at your telephone records. I can look at your text messages, your pictures you take. I can look at the websites you browse, what kind of weird stuff you look at after 11 o'clock at night. I can put all this together, and now I own you. Now I own you. And if the federal government is putting a program together like this, it's nice that somebody out there, like Drey, is able to tell us, oh, by the way, here it is in action. We're watching it be constructed in real time. At 3 a.m., you're seeing new
They're
websites.
popping them up. Yeah, it's insane to watch. And even today, like I was on a walk, and like trying to update it and stuff. And I'm pulling it from my phone right now so I can just look at my updated list. But yeah, it's insane. I mean, even just so 69 is conservative, right? I've added today alone another 12, it looks like, to my thing. So yeah, and some of them are so the thing is, and without getting too technical on it, some of them are reachable where which means you get to the subdomain and then it's behind a wall, but it doesn't give you a 404 error when you try to go to the web page. So it's alive in that way. And then there were some of them, which is, the his board of peace, right? When you go to hit that HTTP status, it will give you a bunch of error signs, or it'll shut you down. It'll be this is under lock and code. So that means you have to be on the actual infrastructure to get to it. Wouldn't it be nice to have some privacy? We all know that. But yeah, so that's what's tough. And so I have all of these as I'm looking at it, green, the ones that I could actually get to. And then others where sends you to an unknown domain, and then some, random IP addresses. But the certifications I think are really interesting. And then the last certified, meaning that they were updated, is really interesting to me too.
But the fascinating part to me is, so and we could talk about login, because I think login is the second most interesting part of this. Login.gov, if you or ID.me, if you've ever interacted with any federal website and where you have to pay taxes, get your information, order an IRS transcript, if you've ever had to do any of these things, then you've had to open a login.gov or ID.me account. If you enroll in Medicare, Medicaid, you get on, there's all these different reasons you would have to open one of these accounts. I think you said in your video, there's 150 million or 175 million people so far have opened. 150
million. Yeah. And I've done it. I've opened an account. I forget for what, but yeah, they're these logins that you have to scan. You're do the geometric or whatever you call it to get in, and it's your literal passkey for everything else. Oh, don't worry, now you can get in if you want to look at your tax returns, or if you want to, whatever.
Yeah, and you're saying that login.gov has this same capacity by the National Design Studio?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so
or it's going
again,
to?
all I know is that the guy who is running login.gov, which let me pull his name really quick. He was a part of Doge and he's running it. And so that's just enough concern. Greg Hogan is running login.gov, and he was on Doge. And so now him proofing the identity services, It's just a whole, like, aren't they in court right now? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel good.
No, and so we look at China and we say, oh, they have a social credit score system. That's so terrible. Well, this is how you would build one of those out. This is what you would do.
Who do you think built it for China? Ellison built this for them, right when Tiananmen Square. Sorry.
Right.
Insane.
And so it looks, to your humble host, it looks like me looking in, this is the infrastructure build out. And if you're right about the ballroom hosting the processing capacity and potentially the storage capacity, it looks like it could all be run out of the office of the presidency. You mentioned vote.gov as well, where they were going to require everybody to register to vote through this system, or at least require the states to register everybody through this system in order to quote unquote verify citizenship. I'm all in favor of verifying citizenship of people who cast votes in federal elections. That doesn't concern me at all.
Yeah, protecting elections is good.
Yeah, but what concerns me is, are we dual purposing these registrations? Are we, on the one hand, saying we just want to make sure this person's a citizen, or are we storing the data on this person, and then when they log in to verify, or they log in to register, they log in to update, now we've captured their location, their IP address, and now we can start pinning all of their electronic activity to this one name, this one ID. That's kind of
that's how it always works. It always starts with immigration. Like, and it sucks that that's the case, because there's obviously healthy arguments for both sides of needing, to be on top of immigration, but then, also there's a lot of layers to it, but it always gets weaponized, because between that and going to war, those are the only two ways you have any justification for locking down more of your citizens. Oh, well, we're in war right now, so we have to take away your ability to access planet labs, right? Like, it's just because we're at war right now. And it's these tightened grips that always get tighter, because when the war ceases, it doesn't. It just gets turned inwards on its own people. And the immigration then gets turned in on its own people. And that's why that's that slippery slope.
I mean, you go back to the founding of the country, or even back in Teddy Roosevelt's days. If Teddy Roosevelt in the early 1900s, while he was president, if they came to him and said, Mr. President, we're going to not even pass a law. The White House is going to start going into everyone's house and reading all of their journals, reading their mail. People would have panicked. People would have freaked out. It would have caused a national controversy. No one would have been okay with it. But because it's our email, it's our text messages, it's our phone calls, it's our voicemails, it's our browsing history, everybody's just like, well, it seems complex. I really don't understand it. That's why I wanted to have you on, because I watched the video and I was terrified. My concern was that I wouldn't be able to explain it, why it was so terrifying. I needed you to come in and kind of walk me through.
Well, and it's hard to do it in, like, because, when you've been in too deep for too long, it's kind of hard to get that, zoom out, explain it like I'm in fifth grade mentality. Because it is, it's like, okay, well, the bunker was where it started, but then it built on the Genesis mission, and then it built on this. And now we have a voter verification citizenship thing, which, by the way, that registration mandate that was public, that was, done in the White House, where I think they said, on the same day that on March 2026, on the same day that Kirk tip line was registered, which we'll get to in a minute, was the same day that they cast this voter registration 90-day countdown for getting people to citizen verified, like, voter lists. They have a 90-day deadline for that in June 2026.
So let's switch to the Kirk thing for just a second. It's good that you brought it up, because it's a good time to switch to it, because I think it's going to make a broader point. I'm concerned about the Kirk tip line, but I'm concerned about it for two reasons. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you found about the Charlie Kirk investigation tip line.
Not a lot. And as I told Barron, in that I'm not as in deep with the Kirk stuff, so he's like my go-to for that. But finding it just in general was alarming. So what I found in it was that its certification was in March. Let me pull up the exact day for you.
It was March 13th or 14th.
March 13th, yeah. It was March 13th. Yeah, March 13th, 2026 was the certification for it. And obviously that is alarming for a couple of reasons, because, he was killed in September of 2025, right?
Right.
It was September, late September. or September 10th, right?
September 10th, yeah.
So what are we doing 6 months later with a tip line? And I was like, oh, well, maybe this was the government tip line that they used and they copied the data over or something like that. And it's not. I mean, it's unmistakably for a very specific event, right? It is not just any assassination. It is this specific one, certified on March 13th. And that's like, I traced it back to that Cloudflare login. And Cloudflare is a domain hosting site. You know how PostHog pings data. Cloudflare allows you to host under its domains, and that's where all the NDS stuff is. And the love is a Love is a skill.
Mm-hmm.
Love is a chore. Love is training data. Love is a skill.
So here's why that bothered me. So what she's saying is the federal government had an FBI tip line established in the immediate hours after the Charlie Kirk assassination. The URL for that was fbi.gov/Utah Valley shooting. And if you went to that, you could upload, and the governor said, oh, please, if you have video, if you have audio, if you have footage, if you have pictures, upload them to this website.
It was the official, and that's the official FBI tip line.
It's no longer active. I went looking for it and I couldn't find it. So that has been taken down. So when I saw your story, I immediately thought, wait a minute. I went back and thought, is that other website still active? I couldn't find it. It wasn't active. And then I had to think, why would they remove the tip line? First, why did they want the tip line? They knew who the guy was within like 33 hours, so that was the famous 33 hours. They knew who he was. They had him in custody, allegedly. They said he was a lone wolf, allegedly. So why do we need an FBI tip line? Why do we need a upload all your videos, upload all your footage, upload all your audio, upload all your camera snaps? And I thought, okay, well, maybe they're just trying to collect evidence to make sure he's guilty. If we see him scampering across campus, if we, can coordinate sound, we can, try and locate the bullet or whatever.
Am I mistaken? Did they not use some Ring doorbell? Like people were submitting footage? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So there was Ring doorbell footage, there was iPhone footage, there was other people had different types of cameras that were out there. And they did get a lot of that. We don't know what all they got because they didn't release it. They just captured it. Now, my thought was, because this is how I think everything's an op. My thing was they were making sure that nobody captured the real hit. Nobody saw what actually happened. They wanted to know what all was out there so they would never be surprised at trial. They would never be surprised in the days leading up to trial. Nobody would ever drop something on them at the last second and say, oh, here's some newly discovered footage that no one's seen before. That they would know what's out there. They would be able to analyze it with AI. They would be able to, have analysts go over it with a fine-tooth comb. And so they collect all this in the Utah Valley shooting FBI.gov website. Well, now that website's missing. We don't know where it is. What's interesting about that is if you were to drop a FOIA request or a discovery request, if you're the defense team and you say, I would like access to all the footage, everything that was uploaded, I want it. I think they would have to give it to you. It's material that's in possession of the federal government. It's part of the investigation that you're defending against. I think Tyler Robinson's defense team would be able to get that. I also think, particularly after the case is over, after he's either pleads guilty or found guilty or whatever, let's assume it doesn't go his way, that would now be FOIA-able, and they would have to release that to everybody. And now the whole country, this holy Charlie Kirk sphere that's developed, everybody would get access to all that footage, and then we would start going over it with a fine-tooth comb. And you've seen what's happened. You have people doing analytics on sound. You have people doing analytics on flashes that they see in windows. You have people looking through trees and seeing flashes. You have people looking at every face that's moving in every location. People dedicated. I'm going to watch every person in this frame right here. I'm going to track them. You watch every person in this frame over here and you track them. All that would be available. Now,
people are scrutinizing this stuff so much. I'm like, you can't even pick your nose out there without somebody having seen you. Yeah, but more power to the people. Go for it.
That's under the old website because that's under the FBI. Things are different when they get under the executive office of the president. The executive office of the president is allowed to shield things from disclosure under national security, under all kinds of different rules. There are ways the office of the president doesn't have to disclose that information. So when I saw your story and it talked about this Charlie Kirk tip line website being created, my immediate thought was, are they transferring all that data to the office of the president in order to shield it because now they don't have to release it?
And is it 12 years or something like that they get to shield it for, or it's like a certain number of years? They can shut the door of the vault and as we've seen before and go away with it. Yeah, and that's why I texted it to you when I came across it, because it's I like I said, I can only get to that Cloudflare love as a skill, so I know it's a part of the same NDS family, the National Design Studio. I know that the National Design Studio is doing something with data that is aggregating, and given that they are creating all of these shadow government adjacent looking websites, like that just say like TrumpRx.gov, like it looks like a regular government website. It has the thing at the top that says, here's how you know that this is a government website. That makes me nervous as to, and again, causation versus, being predatory. I don't know that they're the same thing, because Ellison has always found himself to be an opportune guy. Like, moments after 9/11, the bodies were still being buried, and he's showing up saying, hey, what about a national database where we all track everybody? And they're like, Larry, that's not how this happened. Like, that wouldn't have helped anything. So like, this is not a good argument. And that's when we create these, structures of security that says, here's why we aren't doing this, and here's why it needs to be a law that we don't do this. And so just the idea of the vulnerability of people who were scared for what happened to Charlie Kirk, and they felt like they genuinely wanted to help, or they're more politically motivated people, right? They're people who are in touch. They're young college kids. They're, people who are there. There's a lot of data there's the data you give them, and then there's the data while you're on the website giving them the thing that they can get like at the same time. So I just knowing the dossiers that these guys can build, I don't like it.
Well, not only that, if somebody uploads an image and it has some sort of damning stuff and they think, well, we don't need this guy's on the loose, now he's in jeopardy, right?
But that's like with all that's like the doorbell cameras, you go from having a doorbell where it's a pleasant surprise, a neighbor wants to let you know that they're there and you want to talk to, I now have damning footage potentially, that can be confiscated by anybody in the federal government at any time. Like it's getting very, people like to say George Orwell as a comparison when it comes to this surveillance state. But, I don't think that George Orwell would have ever even thought that we would be kind of implementing a lot of this ourselves. Like the state didn't even have to come do it. Like we just on a Saturday, we went to the hardware store and got a $30 camera and screwed it in. And there's not a novel really about that.
Well, and
I don't know if you look at Twilight.
The Charlie Kirk tip line really bothers me for a lot of reasons. One is
so I'm going to leave it there. I mean, that's, I'm going to listen to the rest of that. But so there's some issues here with Don Lemon. This is the freedom of speech. I mean, these go into all of the fundamental rights of citizens, and it's all over the map. And all they want to do here, these guys, is bitch and scream when something happens to them. I mean, Don Lemon is one of the biggest prima donna celebrity journalists of New York City. I mean, I just rolled my eyes when I see Don Lemon and Jennifer Welch doing the high five on her podcast of how now she's here, her husband's retired, and they've moved to New York City. I'm like, who retires and moves to New York City? I'm sorry. God. Most people, when they retire, they leave. So, high five of how they're going to join forces and retake sanity back, or retake the conversation back for the woke liberals of New York City and the alt left. I mean, really, 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 really. And this Michael Popok, yeah, once again, blah, blah, blah. If you were to meet him at a dinner party and talking to him, you would be like, well, yeah, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. It's all the gift of gab.
In general, up until the Trump administration, it is, I would say I can count on two fingers on one hand the amount of times I'm familiar with the grand jury transcript being obtained because of legitimate arguments that there's been corruption of the grand jury process by the Department of Justice. These things don't happen when there are adults who are ethical running the Department of Justice. But Don, when you subtract 7,000 of the best and brightest from the Department of Justice, and it's not that you replace them with MAGA.
I mean, oh, it's because they fired people. Are you kidding me? I mean, the people over at DOJ, they all should be thrown in prison. We've been up the ass of DOJ for decades. And they just give us attitude. One of the people in my network, who I've been telling her for years, she better start looking at everything that I've been going over and all the stuff we're bringing to the International Criminal Court. She and her husband, she was my older sister's best friend in Arizona growing up, but Republican. We had lost touch. She lived with her grandmother in Tucson. Her grandmother died. Her parents were in Phoenix. Her mother had been in a psychiatric ward as a schizophrenic. Her father was an alcoholic, and that's why she had been with her grandmother. And so then she, when I'm working up on Capitol Hill for Senator Johnston, I mean, it was funny. I'm going over to the Capitol and I had to go to the flag office. You know, if you want a flag, you can order a flag through your congressman. They put it up at the top of the flagpole and they bring it down. At least they used to do that. I think they'll probably just send you a flag, whatever. I think they still do that. So you can order a flag. And we ended up in the office and I hear her say from Dee Concini's office. I mean, it had been at least 10 years that I had seen her and we had been kids. And I was like, God, that looks like her. So I get back to the office. I called Dee Concini's office, which was like just upstairs from ours. We were at the Hart. We'd moved from Russell to Hart. And lo and behold, she's working there. So we connect there. Later, she used to come to Paris when I was living in Paris as an expat. And we lived at Parc Monceau, beautiful apartment at Rue Monceau. Anyway, known her all my life. But she and her husband, she divorced the French guy. She and her husband, the second one, have been at DOJ, between DOJ, Harvard, Stanford, and Berkeley, I think it is, popping back and forth for the past 30, 35 years. I mean, I'm like, y'all, you better look at what's going on here. Oh, no. They're too busy cashing in. Paychecks and pensions, paycheck and pensions. I mean, Arizona, in academia, there's also Noam Chomsky. He's a linguist. I'm like, I've been looking at the role that the rhetoric and cacophony of the women are playing in creating the problems in society. I'll look at it. I'll look at it for years. He's been, I'll look at it when I have time. I'm like, okay, fine. I got your number, buddy. Particularly with the Epstein files coming out. See, Noam Chomsky, a Marxist, and he was here from the, in the 60s. He was, at all the demonstrations and with that whole hippie Marxist alt left stuff. I'm sorry, the guy's an asset. an Israeli asset come. I mean, this has been going on forever within academia and the political institutions, the party politicking between all of the different factions, fueled by money, some of it from Americans, other foreign money. Been going on for decades, generations. So there's Noam Chomsky, and then a friend of my mother's, V.V. Sabah, Dr. V.V. Sabah, anthropologist at University of Arizona. Her husband, Adib, was a cardiologist, a heart surgeon. And they were good friends with my parents, although my mom told me one time that my father thought that Dr. Sabah was doing operations that weren't merited. Although, I mean, if my father says it, I believe it. However, I am aware of the discussion between the surgeons and the physicians. And of course, as I said to my siblings the other day, I said, there is a conflict of interest because, of course, a surgeon wants to operate. That's what he does. But anyway, I mean, they canceled my parents when my parents had their farm stolen from them by Edwin Edwards' Ponzi scheme, and my parents had to flee Louisiana. They sought refuge in Arizona. The FBI was chasing them. I mean, we still don't, and I want to know the details. I want an investigation. I want to know everything. Because with my mother, she used the opportunity. Yeah, it was happening, but also she was using the opportunity to keep my father away from us kids and everybody else and alienated, because then, you know, poor man was under Stockholm syndrome. She was determined, well, this is why we died. She spilled the beans why we left Arizona, and she was determined to destroy him and his career. That's why she sided with my ex-husband. Okay, so let's get into these guys. I mean, I'm so tired of living these dramas, these telenovelas. I mean, one of the reasons I left the States in the 80s, I was like, you people are crazy. I mean, I thought I was marrying into this, you know, Spanish family, extended Spanish family, loving and kind, and the only person loving and kind in that was his maternal grandmother. I mean, that woman, semi-illiterate, but I'll tell you, I always said, ooh, she had more class in her little finger than all of the señoras de la Moraleja. One day I'm going to get a statue up for her in Villaverde that says, to Mimi Carmen, más señora de cualquiera de la Moraleja.
Yeah, you just don't replace them at all. And so you have these exhausted, ethically challenged people, you know, who are standing in front of grand juries with their bosses in Washington, right? This organization has gone flat. You know, I've been involved with cases. You never get to main justice. You're lucky to get your assistant U.S. attorney to talk to you. But now, because of the flattening of the organization, you've got main justice, Todd Blanche, Stan Woodward, and a couple of other people calling all the shots in all of the cases that matter, I'm sure, including yours.
Yeah. Look, I'm glad you mentioned Illinois and Broadview, because what the judge there found, as I said in my opening, it was so damning that the prosecutors voluntarily dismissed all the charges with prejudice once they got caught. And I mean, is it because they're afraid of prosecutors being charged with prosecutional misconduct? Are they afraid of a vindictive prosecution from the people who are charged with this? The judge said, Michael, she had never in her career, reading hundreds, if not thousands of transcripts, never seen prosecutorial behavior like what she saw in those pages. She said that the trust had been broken, that the government's sole job is to do justice, and that the justice itself is their client, and they betrayed it.
And Don, this is, think of the bookends just within 48 hours. You had Judge Crenshaw in the Middle District of Tennessee find vindictive prosecution by, including Todd Blanche, by against Kilmer Abrego Garcia,
yes,
finally dismissing his indictment on prosecutorial misconduct. And 24 hours later, the U.S. attorney in Northern District of Illinois had to admit prosecutorial misconduct and dismiss his own indictment. And I want to put it in context, because for those that are sort of joining our rule of law and the court system in progress, during the Trump era, this is not normal. This is not, I mean, you don't have grand juries refusing to believe the prosecutor in a grand jury setting. But we thought this would happen, Don. The lawyers that are the legal commentators.
New York has been such a joke. I mean, all of them are a joke. As I said to one victim of the courts, I told her, I said, contempt of court? They want to hold me in contempt of court? I'd tell a judge, sir, I moved beyond contempt a long time ago. Never in my career have I ever seen this. I mean, this is, it's like, come on, you guys. Do you think we were born yesterday? This is happening all of the time, and New York is amongst the worst. And this is precisely why now you're gotten to the situation where even the people in the system don't believe each other. And I mean, that's pretty bad, because those people drink Kool-Aid and pass that Kool-Aid. That's all they know how to do.
Commentators thought that after 19 months of forcing the Department of Justice to eat its own and fire those that were ethical, those that would remain were being forced to take positions that were in violation of their ethical duties, and that and the ridiculous positions people like Jeanine Pirro are taking, trying to indict somebody, not who is a ham sandwich, but who threw a ham sandwich. I'm not making this up. Somebody threw a Subway sandwich.
Yes.
And that law clerk or paralegal was attempted to be indicted for a felony. And grand juries are like, yeah, nope. We're not doing that.
And the thing that I want people.
Why don't all of these guys cover? I've contacted Jeanine Pirro, and I went through the Civil Rights Division, which the head of is this Dylan. The Dylan Law Group. Her name's Haim or something. I forget her first name. And that's in the Brian Harpole case. That's the one suing Candace Owens. See, it's all connected. So anyway, that's the head of the Civil Rights Unit, and I went through, because that's the official channel, if you will, and it's going to go through some idiot, snot-nosed brat doing case files. And of course it came back of, no, you have no case. I'm like, okay, once again, thank you very much for confirming that white Americans have no rights in their own country and in Washington, D.C. Fuck y'all. I mean, I prepared and argued these cases. If I contacted America First Legal when they first started. Yeah, okay. Steve Miller, he's the next Goebbels. Yeah, that's why it's not happening. But you would think that one of the journalists would be interested in stories like these. Oh, no. They're too squabbling. Don Lemmon, his feelings has been hurt. Poor little Don Lemmon. Aw.
People to understand is that this is taxpayer money. You are paying for this. So the government says, we never run out of money. They never run out of money because you have to pay for it, your taxes. And so they keep spending your tax dollars that could be going somewhere else. That's what people don't understand, I think. And the folks who do understand and ignore it, I think it's even worse. Now, I've never spoken to you about my case.
Yeah.
But I have seen some of your shows, and I found you to be extremely fair. And again, as I said in my lead up to getting to you, that before they even got to an indictment, in my case, prosecutors went to a judge and they tried to get an arrest warrant against me. And then they swore in an affidavit that I violated the law. The judge read that and they said, no, not at all. No probable cause, nothing here. And so what did they do? They appealed, because I say this was never really about the law, about following the commands of President Trump at the Justice Department. So certainly what they did, the appeals court said no to that too. And then somehow they got a Minnesota grand jury to bring this indictment. That is highly unusual. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, they go to the magistrate judge and he says, as it relates to you and your producer, no, I'm not issuing an arrest warrant, and says you're doing your job as a First Amendment reporter, and I'm not issuing it for you. They don't like that. So they go to Judge Schultz, the chief judge in that district. And he says, no, not only that, I thought he absolved you in his order, the chief judge absolved you, I felt, the way he referred to you and what you were doing, and basically saying there is, and I'm sure your lawyers know, no, I'm not shocking your lawyers. And then somehow from there, as you said, Lord knows what they said to the grand jury to get them to indict you. I was shocked by that, because if they were being fair and honest in their presentation, even as prosecutors, I don't know how you could be indicted. Is your lawyers, are they trying to get the grand jury transcript?
Yes. That's from the very beginning. We filed a motion, and it's been 4 months. Nothing.
Yeah, it's odd. You really, I think now it should just be a matter of course. As I said with Abrego Garcia, I think that opened the floodgates for a series of vindictive prosecution motions, including potentially yours, that will be filed before this Trump administration and DOJ is over. The first one, Kilmer Abrego Garcia, LaMonica McIver, the representative from New Jersey, filed one. James Comey just asked for an extension of time in his trial so that he can file one. They had already filed ones against the original indictment, Letitia James and Comey there. And remember, that's the one that we sort of forgot about. How about when they sent in the Insta prosecutor, just to add water, Lindsay Halligan?
Wait a second. They're going after Comey for why he left as governor? I'm gonna have to look into this one, because I'm like the only one who defended Comey at the time. Excuse me, Como. Andrew Como. This is who we're talking about. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that. Because I want explanations. Why did his lawyer ignore me? These lawyers, oh no, they know everything. When I first started my research, one of the first documents I read, it was a 1970s report by the Bar Association, the American Bar Association, that 70% of the lawyers didn't know what the frick they were doing. I was like, yeah, and you haven't addressed the fundamental problems ever since.
Who goes in and, according to the magistrate judge, violated the Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights, two fundamental rights, while she presented the case to the grand jury against Comey.
Do you think, considering what is happening around the country, that the grand jury, that my attorney should be able to get the grand jury testimony or the filings or whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, I followed your case really closely up until the grand jury, and then beyond that, I'm glad that you and I are talking. You got me on the show, and I'll update myself with the new filings. Yeah, I don't see any reason why. I think the presumption now for federal judges, because the flip side of the coin of grand jurors not believing the Department of Justice is that federal judges, especially where your case is pending, don't believe the Department of Justice. No longer does the tie go to the runner. No longer is there a presumption of regularity. No longer is there a presumption that when the United States of America takes a position that you can trust, that you may not agree with it, but you can trust it based on the law they're citing or the facts they're citing. How many times, Don, do you and I have to report on a phony affidavit? We just had besides Judge Perry, we just had a finding that the two ICE agents who fired through the door and shot the guy they were trying to arrest lied under oath to a federal judge in that case about the fact that they were attacked with a broom and a shovel when they weren't. And the Department of Justice had to admit they had suborned perjury by submitting phony affidavits to a federal judge. I've never seen a Department of Justice have contempt proceedings against it, sanction proceedings against it, findings of fraud on the court, more than this Trump Department of Justice.
Oh, bullshit. When I first started, and I can't wait to get this lawyer in. It's a Spanish woman, in Spain. Oh, I just hope she doesn't die before I get her into court. She told me I was stupid. I was stupid and naive because everybody falsifies documents. Everybody lies in court. These are the norms that the legal community across the globe are protecting and defending. That's the bottom line. Because all of the lawyers, all they care about is money, 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 money. And the DOJ has had their head up their ass for generations. And this is where we've ended up.
Michael, in my case, and this happened earlier this week, the Minnesota court was ordered to unseal the government's application for search warrants. There were 5 of them. One of them was for this very platform that we're on right now was for my YouTube channel. And it was they wanted the names and information, I think addresses and phone numbers for my subscribers. And the judge denied it and said, there is no world in which this has any relevance. And he threw it out, or the judge threw it out. Yeah. Why on earth? Look, in my opinion, one would think why do you want all of that information? Are you trying to intimidate them? Are you trying to ruin my business? What are you trying to do? What do my subscribers and the people who watch my show have to do with any of this? Why would they do that?
There's no legitimate good faith basis to ask for your audience contact information. Look, you're a public figure. Everything that you do that relates to reporting is somewhere on the internet, on a show, on a Substack, on a video. It's all recorded, including the day of the events for the indictment. And so no, but what are we watching? We're watching an administration that sees the First Amendment expression of reporters and reporters as being the enemy of the people. That's literally the phrase they use over and over again, stealing it from totalitarian regimes. You want to crush the press. Let's remember for a moment that our founding fathers and framers, many of them who were writers and publishers, believed that the press was the fourth estate, the fourth branch of government, to keep honest the other three branches. They would be rolling around in their mausoleums to see Donald Trump attack the press and try to chill expression.
For what reason, again, Michael, in your opinion, why would they want subscriber information?
Why would they want it? Or what's the BS reason they're telling the judge?
Both.
Well, what did they tell the judge? I didn't read that particular file.
Look, I'm not a legal expert.
Okay,
if I had the thing, I could tell you, but I think what happened is that they didn't actually give an explanation. Again, I'm not an attorney, but I think they just said that they should be able to have it because they're the government.
I mean, the only thing I've ever seen the government, like, Carolyn Levitt and the rest say against you is that, he just did this to boost his ratings and to get more subscribers. And, he wanted to go to jail because, it helps, like Lenny Bruce, it helps you with your popularity, which is a ridiculous comment. But no, you don't. If that's your point, I don't get what that's a defense to, or that is a focus of the indictment. So no, there's just I'm glad the judge saw through this right away. There's no legitimate argument that they're entitled to your subscriber base in order to make any kind of criminal case against you. It just shows you how weak and they're grasping at straws on this case. But I'm also surprised that in that courthouse, they're not moving with a quicker velocity, because justice denied, or justice delayed is justice denied. I would like to see things that we're talking about be resolved in your favor by a judge much quicker.
Do you think that there's some intimidation going on by the Justice Department, and maybe the judges are somehow feeling that, which they shouldn't? They should be immune to that. Do you think that is happening?
Yeah, they're not immune to that. I've had enough interaction with former federal judges and federal judges, without revealing any confidences, to know that, especially in the first year, they were very worried about their own personal safety. There's been a tremendous increase in threats, physical death threats and others against federal judges and their families. And it did have an impact, especially in year one, on their ruling. We just had a case down in Florida, Trump's case against the phony case against the IRS, and Judge Williams, who's a great a judge who I know well, at the moment when she realized that she was had and it was a phony settlement to create that weaponization fund, she should have called all the lawyers in and done fact-finding about a fraud on the court. But instead, she closed the case and dismissed the case. So who's come to the rescue? 35 former federal judges filed today a brief imploring her to reopen the case and do the fact-finding to sanction the Trump administration and the IRS and the Department of Justice.
So the judge let someone else do their dirty work?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't listen. She's a brave person. I just don't know why.
Nobody wants unpleasantness. I've been told this time and time again. I mean, even the Bobby Kennedy's campaign, a volunteer, she said, they're ignoring you because they don't want to deal with any unpleasantness. It was like, you got to be kidding me. Running for frickin' president, you don't want to deal with any unpleasantness.
She closed that file so quickly without using her inherent authority. So when I see weird things like that, then I remember all the stories I've been told by former federal judges who have been on the show with me about them feeling their colleagues who are still on the bench feeling intimidated. Now they're starting to get their groove back. The last 6 months we've seen a lot more willingness to use tools in their tool bag against the Trump administration. You see judges now, for instance, saying, hey, I got an idea. You tell me how many times you have violated court orders in this district, and then come back to me with that audit, and I'll do something about it. You know, I see a lot of creative ways to get to contempt in order to show causes as they realize they've come to realize that they're federal judges. But I've never met a scared federal judge. So it's weird to me to see them unwilling to exert this awesome power that they hold from the bench.
Well, you said you'd like to see more velocity. I mean, obviously I would, and my attorneys would as well. So look, I'm not an attorney. I'm not, have not been around courtrooms, at least as a subject. I've covered lots of legal cases. So I have empathy for people who may be concerned about their safety. I'm concerned about my safety. Do you know how many threats that I've gotten over the years, and starting with the Trump administration, not really before that? How people sometimes try to intimidate me out in public, how I don't feel safe all the time, how I have to pay for my own security. So I can empathize with that. I have no patience for it. I feel like this should...
Pardon, Lemmon. Security. My security is not being out on the street in a tent like everybody's been threatening me, starting with my ex-husband 20 years ago. I mean, I live in a shithole with rats. I can hear them in the up above the ceiling. And I'm just happy to keep a roof over my head because I won't drink and pass out the Kool-Aid that Don Lemon has become rich and famous for doing. In New York, I mean, he's sitting in a pile of shit because he's been a part of producing that shit.
Be motivation for the judges to do the right thing so that people who are doing this will know it's not the right thing to do. I don't understand. And especially if you are a court appointed person, a judge, you can get security and have the government pay for it. I can't do that.
Right.
I have to pay for my own security. So I have no patience for it. So every day I show up, I do my work. I'm not intimidated, even though it may get me in trouble with the government. I don't understand why someone who has as much power and as big a platform as a judge, a federal judge or judges, are intimidated by anyone who's out in the public. They're supposed to be the bulwark between the bad guys and the good guys, or, as you said, justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I've been trying to get justice for 20 years. And we're in this state because the lawyers are as incompetent as the journalist. Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo are perfect examples of New York celebrity journalists at their finest. And the Cuomo family, ever since Mario Cuomo rose to power, I mean, you had it was Rockefeller. I don't know if was there somebody between Rockefeller and Cuomo, Mario Cuomo? And I don't know, Rockefeller, I guess he was governor, but you know, Rockefeller was in charge of Manhattan when it passed over to the Catholics. Same thing happened in Washington. The Catholics and Jews took over from the Dutch. There's already a problem with the Dutch, but look where we are. I mean, DC used to at least have a pretense of integrity and being, you know, here to serve the American people. Yeah, I mean, there at least used to be a grain of truth. And New York was just, you know, New York, the Big Apple. What do you want? We had to put up with it. But no, now they become the head vampire, sucking the blood. New York, Manhattan, DC, and Hollywood. The three vampires of the country sucking the blood, and leaving the poor country and its people dead and dying. Although the American people also, they become fat, lazy, and stupid, and they're letting everybody get away with it.
My justice is being denied every single minute this continues to go on.
And be human beings and recognize the obvious. I mean, does anybody?
Justice is denied for every single moment that this goes on for poor little Don Lemon. Oh, I mean, he is, you know, play the sympathy card, play the sympathy card, play the sympathy card. See, he wants to maintain an elitist system where, you know, concentration of wealth and power into the hands of a few, and exploitation of the masses, and then they ease their conscience with a bunch of charity shit. But he wants to play Capote Swan and Truman Capote with Jennifer Welch and all the other like prima donnas like Lauren, Lauren Bush Lauren. That's a Bush daughter, and she married David Lauren, who's the son of Ralph Lauren. But you know, I mean, it cracks me up. Cornelia Guest, the only mention she got in the Epstein files, or with Epstein's little black book, was Deb of the Decade of the 1980s. I mean, you know, I was like, there you have it. See, changing of the guard. Changing the guard. Cornelia had to even leave. She left Manhattan. She went up to Connecticut. Even that didn't work out. So she went down to Dallas. So she could be closer to Hollywood. She's still, after all these years, an aspiring actress. Give it up. Give it up.
Is there anybody in my audience and your audience that thinks that if you hadn't gotten and taken a stand against Elon Musk, that you would have been indicted for covering a story on the ground in that church in St. Paul? I mean, the linkage there is so obvious that you know, and it's got to seep its way in to the thinking of judges about why has this person been indicted in being a member of the press and doing a report, and you know, what's happening in the White House, you know, what's going on with Stephen Miller and Elon Musk and Donald Trump that may shed a light on whether you've been vindictively prosecuted. I mean, to the average person, it's obvious that you've been the victim of vindictive prosecution.
Just something else I want to talk to you about, Michael. You're so knowledgeable. I'm so appreciative that you're here. Is the press right now, and as I said in my opening statement, that they have neutered the corporate media. You and I are in independent media, and we know the power that it has now, the momentum that it has. And so I think that they are going to try to come. I think the next target, or the media target now, is going to be independent journalists and independent media, because we don't have people telling us what we can say and what we cannot say, and whether we can have access or not. We really don't care. We just report the truth. So I feel like them coming after my subscribers and all of those things is that they're coming after me using independent journalists. And by the way, this is much bigger than me. This is about the freedom of the press, the freedom of publishing, the freedom of the press broadcast or print, for you and I to be able to do what we do. This is much bigger than Don Lemon, and I'm surprised that the media is not covering it more than they are.
Freedom of the press, freedom of publishing. I mean, I've been trying to get my social media platform up for 20 years, and, you know, starting with because my husband and my mother didn't want me to do it. Everybody's canceled me because, oh, we don't want to involve in any unpleasantness. This is a family matter. Like, yeah, in some village in India or Pakistan, you'll complain about that. Yet you're like, oh, when it happens in our territory, we're good to go. Hypocrites. And then, like my book, The Mommy Wars, between the feminists, the anti-feminists, and the socialites. If Skyhorse Publishing of New York, Tony Lyons, who's America First PAC, had published the book in 2024, Bobby Kennedy would have won. And if Curtis Brown in London had published the book, this is Carolyn Curtis Brown was the wife of the founder of Curtis Brown, and Carolyn Curtis Brown started Federation of American Women's Clubs overseas. Now I want to see those little ladies. They're going to have to explain to themselves in the International Criminal Court. And Curtis Brown, one of their clients is all of the stuff, the archives of Winston Churchill. Well, Jenny Churchill went to my school, my boarding school in England, Cobham Hall. I'm like, come on, these schools are supposed to be networking, producing future leaders of the country. Yeah, future leaders, a bunch of whores who will turn a blind eye to anything and everything going on in front of their noses because they want to go shopping and do lunch. I mean, if Curtis Brown had published my book, I've gone to Lemmon actually a couple of times in the past 8 years or so. Don't even respond. And I mean, look what's happening to the UK. I mean, hell, this would be a feather in anybody's cap. Save the House of Windsor from self-destruction, because if King Charles doesn't get his shit together, he's going to end up just like King Charles I. They might not cut off his head, but not literally, but figuratively, that's what's going to happen.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, you have, what happened today on 60 Minutes with yet another amazing correspondent being canned and not having her contract renewed because she got sideways with Barry Weiss, who's busy trying to. I've
been doing this. Is Sharon? Is that you talking about Sharon Alfonsi?
Yeah, they're not going to renew her contract.
They're not going to renew. Oh,
no, right. Which I was surprised because she wanted that story on CCOT and El Salvador, the torture prison, to go out on 60 Minutes, and it finally did in some other format. But she's been very public about freedom of the press. At the same time, there you go. At the same time, you've got a group of people in favor.
Freedom of the press. These platforms are entertainment platforms producing propaganda. And then they scream, freedom of the press.
Public interest groups in favor of freedom of the press, challenging, the Paramount Skydance takeover of all things media, including now CNN. And who's left standing, right? Who are the pins left standing? It's independent journalists like you. You're one of the first to go out there, Midas Touch, where I do my work in legal AF. Right now the FCC can't get their hands on us for now. But let's be frank. What's my platform? Google and YouTube.
And I mean, what are you accomplishing? What are you really accomplishing? Nothing. Because everybody's chasing clicks and likes and money.
Up there with the president, on planes to China and during his inauguration, Google and YouTube. And that's the fear, is that there's pressure placed on those corporate and tech bros to shut down these voices and get out of this business of platforming us. Now, look, you and I, we've made it clear to our audience that you and I will run around in an old van with a shortwave radio in the back if we have to.
Oh,
right?
God.
I'll share one with you. We'll do that.
A megaphone, right? Yeah.
We'll do pirate radio.
Right.
But that's my.
You think that Don Lemmon is actually going to give up his, $1 million apartment in Manhattan and go on the run with some like CB radio? Yeah, right.
My fear is I always sleep with one eye open, recognizing that the devil that we have to be in business with, so to speak, is these large media companies which have the audience and the platform. I mean, Substack not included, but that is a reality, and that is the thing that keeps me up at night.
Yeah, and the thing is that I love about this, honestly, I love the freedom, and it's it can be a little intimidating sometimes to be on your own. But what I love is that we help each other out. You come on the show, I go on your show, and I'd like to come on your show and talk about this.
Oh yeah.
But Ben, Jordy, and Brett,
I can't believe this. I'm like so sick and tired. Particularly the group of people who have like come up as rising stars with the Charlie Kirk assassination. I mean, these guys have really milked it. There's Baron Coleman, Jesse on Fire, Coach Collins, Brandon Tatum. I don't know if he had a lot of. I mean, he's on the opposition of those guys, but all of these guys, it's this little club, and it cracks me up because Candace Owens is going on. She's been covering the Freemasons, and how it's this like secret club, and how they've gotten into the occult, which I agree with. But I'm like, look at you podcasters in the Charlie Kirk assassination. You like, this is a perfect case study, and how this like groupthink and little clique, it is so high school 90510 type of deal. Yeah. Oh, the popular kids, the popular girls, and all the guys want to sleep with the popular girls and cozy up, and nobody else is allowed to sit at the table with them at lunchtime. So they go, they move around and do these interviews. I mean, we saw that with Baron Coleman and this Drey Dossier girl. And so they go around and platform each other. And this is how they'll boost each other's audience and subscriptions and things like that. It's all, it's a club. And it's a closed little club. And you see the nouveau riche who are arriving, no different from the old guard. There's as much problem of integrity and diligence in reporting as there is in law, in economics, in poli-sci, policymakers, politicians, whatever you want to call them. That's all. It's an epidemic. So anyway, I mean, that's kind of, I'll leave it there today. Yeah, I was like, come on, you guys, this is such hypocrisy. I mean, they make some good points that I agree with, but they're such hypocrites. It's like these people live and we're the good guys and the opposition is the bad guys. When we were in office, when we had our little buddies in office, we didn't do anything bad. We didn't contribute to any of this. It's all the other people's fault. It's not ours. I mean, this is so kindergarten. It is not even funny. And these are the people who are ruling our country. You talk about the oligarchs and the deep state of the oligarchs. Yeah, but all of these professions, these white collar criminals, they have their hand in it. So that's it. Okay, well, that's it for today.